Frank Sanchez calls out Deontay Wilder. He says he will knock Deontay Wilder out easily. So to quote him, he said, "I have my eye on Deontay Wilder. That's the guy I know I can beat easy, and without a doubt, I'll knock him out. That's an easy fight. I'm not Luis Ortiz. The only thing that he has is power. He doesn't know how to box." They are basically the same fighter, and he's talking here about Efe Ajagba. They only have a power punch. I know the talent and technique that I have and what it takes to get victory. I hope I get the opportunity to fight Wilder. And by the way, Sanchez, like several other fighters recently, has left Eddie Reynoso and is now training with Joe Goosen. And I don't know, it's a bit of a, I don't want to say a strange pairing, but I've never been too convinced with Joe Goosen as a trainer, to be honest with you. But that's a subject potentially for another video. Anyway, Sanchez goes on to say, if there is an opportunity, I'll fight Ruiz or anybody. That's what I've always said. So he's also willing to get in there with the destroyer, Andy Ruiz. Now, in terms of the things that Sanchez says here, that Ajagba and Wilder are essentially the same fighter, I completely disagree. They have similarities, yes, but Deontay Wilder is a much stronger character than Efe Ajagba from what I've seen. He is extremely, extremely ferocious in the ring. He has this incredible intensity, which I don't see in Ajagba. Ajagba appears to be a much more calm type of character, whereas Deontay is very emotional, he's angry, and he channels that into his fighting. Also, Ajagba is more technically correct than Wilder. He isn't as ungainly, he isn't as awkward, he doesn't windmill with his shots, he doesn't fall off balance as often, he's more conventional. So there are lots of differences between the two. Ajagba, of course, hits very hard with the right hand. And essentially, I guess that's what Sanchez is honing in on here, the point he's trying to make. But Wilder's awkwardness is actually part of what makes him effective, because when you're a fighter like Sanchez, who's been in there in the amateurs for so many years, fighting the best, all these very well-schooled Cubans at home and Russians and other Eastern Europeans abroad who are very well-schooled, you get used to fighting people who are well-schooled. You get used to that look. You get used to the body language and the movements of people who are well-schooled, anticipating what they're going to do. When you get in the ring against someone like Wilder, who throws the rule book out to a large degree, it's maybe not quite as easy to read them, because they're doing things and they're making moves that you won't necessarily have seen before. So I think he's maybe underestimating Wilder a little bit if he's comparing him too closely to Efe Ajagba. Wilder, for my money, is, or at least was, at one point, better than Efe Ajagba. And again, that's despite the fact that Ajagba is more technically correct. Ajagba is very upright, and there are plenty of things that he does which are not ideal, and he certainly shows a lot of limitations. But like I say, his balance, his punch form is often more correct than Deontay Wilder, but he doesn't appear to have the passion. He doesn't have the speed. I think Wilder's faster than Efe Ajagba and more athletic. But if Frank Sanchez was to fight Deontay Wilder, do I think he would have a good chance of winning? Absolutely yes, he would, in my view. I think that Sanchez, well, as you heard him say there, he's not going to be intimidated by Wilder's power. He will have been in there, not just in the Ajagba fight, but many times in Cuba, in international amateur fights with lots of different people that hit extremely hard. So I don't think power alone is going to intimidate him. He has very fast hands, Frank Sanchez. I was really, really impressed with his foot speed, yes, but his hand speed was tremendous in the Efe Ajagba fight. Now, it was a negative performance. If you wanted to critique it, you could say it was negative, but he got the job done. He dropped the guy and he won soundly on points. I don't think a Wilder fight would be as straightforward as that because Wilder's a bit more unpredictable. See, Efe Ajagba almost went into like a sparring partner mode after a few rounds. And that made it easy for Sanchez to read what he was doing and what he was trying to do. Whereas with Wilder, we've never seen him go into a sparring partner mode. Even in his last fight, where he got knocked out badly by Tyson Fury, he was trying right up until the end to knock Fury out. So say what you want to say about Wilder, and I've said a lot of things about him. One thing I've never denied is that Deontay Wilder is a warrior. Right? When this guy's in the ring, he gives it absolutely everything. And that is not something that we saw from Efe Ajagba. So, yeah, I think Frank Sanchez is a dangerous fight for Deontay Wilder right now. He's fast. He's technically sound. He's obviously got a good ring IQ. He's experienced as an amateur. He's now 20-0 as a pro. So I think it's a dangerous fight for Wilder. I'd be surprised if Wilder took that fight right now. See, the thing about Cuban fighters, particularly Cuban heavyweights, throughout the years, and I guess the main story people are going to want to talk about is the fact that a lot of Cuban heavyweights lack discipline, but that hasn't been the case with Luis Ortiz and certainly Frank Sanchez. Ortiz always kept himself in reasonable shape. Sanchez is in good shape. So these are not like the Jorge Luis Gonzalez's of the past and Odinés Solis and all these kind of guys, the typical Cuban heavyweights who would come over to the United States and just go crazy, all the freedom and all the money and all this kind of stuff. No, these are guys who have more discipline than that. The only thing about Ortiz and Sanchez is that I think they're a lot older than their publicly stated age. But again, that's a different point. But anyway, I think that, yes, Sanchez would be, the point I was going to make is Cuban fighters very rarely reach a level or a profile that affords them the type of privilege, can I use that word, that many other fighters get by way of being able to secure great opportunities. Now, Luis Ortiz did get some good opportunities, but I don't think the exception disproves the rule. For the most part, Cuban fighters fit into the category of who needs him. They don't tend to bring a lot of fans, they don't tend to bring a lot of public interest, but at the same time, they tend to be very good and very well schooled. So it isn't a particularly attractive proposition to cash cow fighters out there. Do you know what I mean? For the most part, it's like, okay, this guy's really well schooled. Nobody knows who he is. Nobody watches him. Why am I fighting this guy again? This tends to be the attitude a lot of the time. Again, the Ortiz situation was, I want to say, an exception to the rule. And maybe Wilder and his people would make an exception again with Frank Sanchez. You guys let me know what you think in the comments below. I suspect they won't. I suspect they would rather go the Andy Ruiz route. Hopefully, Andy Ruiz gets past Luis Ortiz and we don't see Wilder Ortiz 4. We don't want to see that. But yeah, if Andy Ruiz does get past him, I suspect that'll be the fight you see. Might even see Wilder against Helenius. And I guess you could apply certain things I just said about Cuban fighters to Helenius as well. But Helenius did just come off a win against Kaunaki. And Helenius appears to be more vulnerable. Even though he had those wins against Kaunaki, 2 wins, he still appears to be more vulnerable than Frank Sanchez, who's undefeated. So that's what I'll say about that. I'd like to see the fight, no issue with Wilder versus Sanchez at all. I think it's a good one. But I have my doubts about whether it will happen. Obviously, Sanchez has to keep calling people out, doing what he's doing. And I think that's one thing that Luis Ortiz did well, is he was calling everybody out. Even though he doesn't speak barely a word of English, right? He could barely speak a word of English. He was still through interpreters. I think his trainer was his main interpreter, Luis Ortiz. He was talking all sorts of trash. And you're going to need to if you are a dangerous, well-schooled Cuban who doesn't have a big fan base. You better start talking a lot of trash. Ortiz used to do that. Sanchez is calling people out. I'd like to see him up the ante and actually start talking trash, because calling people out is not talking trash. Yeah? Up the ante. Let's get WWE out here. You know what I mean? Let's get like that. Anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments below about Sanchez calling out Wilder and how you think he would do against him, and also the points Sanchez made regarding the comparisons between Wilder and Efe Ajagba. Let me know.